So we're in chapter 3.2, adding scenes, and we're back to our cabin model. I've created a couple of things. I've got extra styles, so based on what we know about styles, I've created this one, simple style cut, and this one, simple style planes. Now they're all based on this one, which is a simple style, and the cut one will display the section cuts. That's turning this one on, and the planes is displaying the section planes, so we can see which ones are the active section planes. The simple style shows neither the cut nor the plane, so that's very, very simple to do. What we're going to do first is create a sort of a 3D long shot of this, and then we'll put some elevations and some sections in. So I've got 3 layers. Obviously you'd need more than that in reality, but this is trying to keep everything as simple as possible. I've got an accessory layer which controls these things, so either on or off. And I've also got a topography layer which will control all the topography. So those two turned off will just give me this geometry to play with. And I think that's really the way I prefer to work. I think sometimes if you've got too much showing in the SketchUp model, when you take it to layout, it can be a bit confusing. I much prefer to put in my backgrounds in layout as opposed to taking them from SketchUp. So that's why I tend to turn them off when I'm dealing specifically with the project geometry, unless I'm actually showing some sort of long shot. So I'll just turn these back on initially so we can set up a nice 3D view overlooking the water, maybe the rocks, and that might be something we want to show the client, just that view there. So now I can create a scene either by hitting this plus sign or going to View, Animation, Add Scene. And that's going to create a scene across there. Now this is now set. So if I was to move this around and I click back on scene 1, it's going to flick back to that. Now it rotates around simply because View, Animation and Settings, the scene transitions are set to 2 seconds. Now it's not always a good thing to have that. I prefer to turn that off. It is turned on by default, but I prefer to turn it off simply because those 2 seconds do add up, especially if you've got a lot of scenes across the top and it does get a bit tedious watching them just slowly rotate back into position. The next thing I'm going to do is create some elevations. So I'm going to create a new scene and I'll create it from this existing scene. Right click and add. That's scene 2. Now for that one, I'm going to make sure layer 0 is the default layer. Turn these 2 layers off. And then we can look at the front view. And if we take our camera and make it parallel, and then we can zoom in a bit on this. And if we're happy with the way that the shadows fall, you just need to set that back to that. And pressing the wheel down and holding the shift key down together give you the option to pan. I can then right click and update this scene. Now I'm just adjusting my scenes view from detail to list just to save myself a little bit of space in that dialog box. The next one will be based on this one and I'll create it from this. So I'll go add scene and I'll call this side elevation and then hit enter and that'll set that for side elevation. So that's how you change the name of these things. I could add a description if I wanted, but all I'm going to do is click on the view toolbar, the right, and that's going to give me the right side view. And I can just pan this into view. I reduce that down a bit and reduce that down a bit, and I can see all this stuff. Now in layout, what I would do is create the rocks instead of having them section cut in from SketchUp. So I'll set that the way I want it. Right click and update. So now we've got scene 1, scene 2, and scene 3. So we've got 2 side elevations and a 3D long shot of this cabin. We now want to have a look at our sections, and if we turn on our planes style, it'll show us the several section cuts that we've generated, or I've generated. And if I double click on this one to make this the active cut, and then I go to the simple style cut, all I'm going to get is the section cut, not the section planes. And because my topography and accessories are turned off, then all I get is this information. Now I want to go for the top view and pan back into position make sure I'm still set to parallel, which I am. And this is a nice plan view showing construction information on the main supports of this cabin. So I can now go right click, add scene, and if I want to give it a name, plan view, hit enter. And then I'll generate a section cut from this side. And to get that, I'll create a new view. I'll call this section AA. Hit enter. And then if we go to the planes, just going to zoom out a bit, and we can choose this one. Sometimes you have to go into 3D to see it. So this is now our active cut. I'll go back to my simple style cut, and we'll go to the side view, and that's given us a section cut through there. Now I've already pre-decided where I wanted these section lines to come, but we'll have a look at section cuts a lot more in the next chapter. So now I can position that, I can right click, and I can update that, and we've now generated within very short order scene 1, scene 2, a side elevation, a plan view, and section AA. And if we just make sure that's been updated, we can have a run through. So scene 1's our long shot, scene 2 is a front elevation, we've got a side elevation, we've got a plan view, and we've got section cut. Now in our next video we'll look at updated scenes. We've already seen how easy it is to update a scene, but we'll concentrate on these settings and see what happens if we decide not to update certain aspects of the scene.